Hello, folks. Welcome to Jimmy Hadler's YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jimmy Hadler, and today I have a special guest here, Mike Arano, our co-host from Packer Reacts, and we'll be talking about the greatest safety of all time, ladies and gentlemen. Mike, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Now, as I like to get back of how we've been going through the GOAT series, we started with special teams. We've been going for the defense. This is the last episode for defense, so ended on a high note we like to do here. But let me remind you guys of how I do the GOAT series and how I do my players. Pick 5 players, and then I have an honorable mention with a special guest. They get to have the honorable mention if they want to or not, so that's their choosing. So in this episode, we'll be having 2 honorable mentions and having 5 guys. This is not ranked whatsoever. This is based on their achievements, how they dominated the field, the impact they made on and off the field. That will be accounted for. And at the end of the episode, we'll get to choose our ultimate GOAT of who we think is the greatest safety of all time. But before we start, make sure you leave a like on this and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. We'd appreciate it. Now we have our safety specialist, as I like to call here, Mike. What is a safety, sir?
So a safety is a defensive position, obviously. They mainly play the hawk of the defense, where their farthest player is back on the field away from the line of scrimmage, although some can move up, in a dime package. But, in the traditional 2 high safety, we have the strong safety and the free safety, back playing the pass. They're both the deepest players in the field. So obviously they can see everything in front of them. They obviously also play a huge role in communication on the field. They're not usually the ones that call in the plays. It's usually the middle linebacker, which you had but they really have the hawk's eye view of the field and can really try to dissect what the quarterback is doing at the line of scrimmage and see what routes they think that the receivers are going to run and try to, cut some routes off, make some picks. But ultimately, they're the last line of defense as well. So they can't be too risky, because if they're too risky, bite too hard, that's it. You could have a receiver go deep and be gone. One thing that was actually interesting before I hand it back off to you, but kind of the difference between what the strong safety is and a free safety, because most times you think about like a safety, you think a safety is a safety, but there is actually a difference. Apparently, strong safeties, they didn't really be very creative with the name. Strong safeties tend to be larger and stronger than the free safety. And that's because they're assigned to the strong side in the offense, which means so the strong safety is supposed to be the player that's on the tight end side. So obviously, if they have to tackle, they can match up in size and strength. So that's the strong safety. Strong safety also tends to play closer to the line of scrimmage, so they can also assist and stop at the run, which, being up at the line of scrimmage is a lot of big guys, a lot of big offensive linemen, a lot of big defensive linemen, right? So you need to have a strong body type to kind of hold your own in that part of the field. So strong safety is there to, stop the tight end, stop the run. And, free safety is more just, they got the whole free, the free roam of the field, basically. So in a 2 high shell, they both play back. They're obviously expecting a passing play, and the run is kind of open for the offense. The strong safety's up at the box. It's also probably has something to do with the run, or it's a short yardage of gain. So they expect a nice dump off to the tight end or something. So it's a really versatile position. It's an interesting position to play. It's not like a lot of times cornerbacks either just kind of sit in there. If they're in zone, they kind of sit in their part of the field, or if they're in man, they just stay with their man. Safeties kind of have to be in charge of everything. They need to be good at communicating, seeing plays before they occur, and they need to be in the right place at the right time, because if not, you're really relying on your cornerbacks to have lockdown coverage. The safety is kind of your safety. That's really what it is. They provide safety on the field, that you don't have a huge play or the cornerback doesn't get beat and has no help over the top.
As we've got our analysis there from our safety specialist, Mike, here. Now let's get started with the GOAT series list. Let's start with the honorable mention here, and we'll let the guests start with first. Who is your honorable mention, sir?
Yeah, so, this is a little bit biased, being a Packers fan. My honorable mention, and I wouldn't say he's the best safety ever, but I really think he had the opportunity and the potential to, if his career would have lasted, unfortunately, is Nick Collins. Nick Collins, to me, was probably my favorite safety of all time, coming out of Bethune-Cookman. He was a second-round pick, and, he just really changed the Packers defense. You didn't have to worry about the position. He was a playmaker. He was all over the field, and he was the guy. The biggest play that we're all going to remember from Nick Collins was the Super Bowl, where he, gets the pass from Roethlisberger, batted by the big man Howard Green. The ball pops up in the air, and Nick Collins is right there to pick it off. And obviously it wasn't that hard of a catch, but again, safety's got to be in the right place at the right time. Brought the ball back, dove into the end zone, got to his knees, went like this, and a huge play to start off the Super Bowl on a great note for the Packers. So obviously that's that's more of a homer thing than anything, but just kind of his stats. Only played from 2005 to 2011, so 6 seasons. Obviously played all for the Packers. He was selected to in 6 seasons 3 Pro Bowls, so half his seasons were Pro Bowl seasons. And now don't forget that 2011 season, I believe, is when he got hurt. So really only 5 seasons. So 3 out of 5 seasons he was selected to the Pro Bowl. And he had a total of 21 interceptions in 5 seasons. So that's about 4 interceptions a season. That's pretty good. 83 passes defended, 5 forced fumbles, and 5 defensive touchdowns, 1 being in the Super Bowl. So that's great stats for 5 years, a 5-year career. Unfortunately, against the Panthers in 2011, that's when he suffered his injury. It was a neck injury, and it looked pretty bad at the time. I remember watching it. It's just one of those things where you have a great player who has a great opportunity in the league, and it's just kind of a freak accident happens.
Yep.
And unfortunately, his career ended that day. Somebody that I'm always going to admire is Nick Collins. I really think he was one of the best Packers defensive players I've seen in my lifetime. I really wish we could have seen his career come to fruition, but I really think he could have been on this list when it was all said and done. I think he had the potential. That's my honorable mention. Definitely want to give him his props because he's a great player.
Yeah, absolutely. He was a great player. I was surprised you took Nick Collins. You could have took Leroy Butler there.
I could have, but Leroy Butler is not my generation. So obviously Leroy is a great safety. The inventor of the Lambeau leap. So huge props to that. Changed the whole history of the NFL with creating that. What's crazy is a touchdown celebration was created by a defensive player. I mean, what's the chances of that? So it goes to show you, defensive players, when they get their opportunity to score a touchdown, they take advantage of it. It doesn't come all day. Contribution was to jump into the stands, and that became a memorable moment in NFL history. It took him way too long to get in the NFL Hall of Fame. Totally deserving. I think Leroy was well overdue being the NFL Hall of Fame. Super deserving. Just a great player and probably the Packers' best safety of all time. I mean, clearly Packers' best safety of all time. Although I think Nick Collins could give him a run for his money. That's my 2A or 1A, 1B. Sorry. Honorable mention was Leroy Butler. So thank you for bringing him up. But mine's got to be Nick Collins just because of the personal impact of watching him play.
And now we'll get to my honorable mention. This guy played 13 seasons with the Arizona Cardinals. That is Larry Wilson, 1-time Defensive Player of the Year, 6 first-team All-Pro, 1 second-team All-Pro, 1-time interceptions leader, made a 60s, 70s All-Decade team, made 8 Pro Bowls, made a 75th and 100th anniversary team, got inducted into the Cardinals Ring of Honor, retired his number with the Cardinals. Stats for him, folks. 52 interceptions, 5 touchdowns, 14 fumble recoveries, fearless wrecking machine. Very rare for an NFL player to have over 52 interceptions. That's incredible to do there. Now let's move on. This guy played 16 seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles and the Denver Broncos. He is tied for the Frank Gore list, folks. Now, for Frank Gore term, if folks don't know that, means he played the longest at his position. That is Brian Dawkins, nicknamed X-Man. 4 first-team All-Pro, 1 second-team All-Pro, 9 Pro Bowls, made the 2000s All-Decade team, made the Eagles Hall of Fame, retired his number with the Philadelphia Eagles, got inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame. His stats, folks, 37 interceptions, returned for 513 interception yards, and had 26 sacks. Mike, what do you think about Brian Dawkins, X-Man?
He was just, a hard hitter. Talk about a strong safety that, is all over the ball, plays with a strong mentality and a, fierce mentality. That was Dawkins. I think we all know him for his game-changing plays and just, like you had mentioned, he had 37 interceptions, was quite a bit. 2 touchdown interceptions, so not a ton, so he didn't bring a lot back to the house. One of those players that you always feared going against if you're an opposing offense. And, it's kind of our lifetime. He was on the NFL 2000s All-Decade team. It's just, somebody that we grew up kind of seeing. Like you said, 16 seasons, so he's around for a long time. 9 Pro Bowls, 4 first-team All-Pros. So, this guy, top of the league during his time. And he also helped the team reach the Super Bowl, too, which is obviously, not one player's stats reaching the Super Bowl, but whenever you could be one of the best players on a team that makes or wins the Super Bowl, that's always a huge career accomplishment. So, clearly was correct to get into the Hall of Fame.
When I watched him a little bit and watching the highlights, as you just mentioned, he was a hard hitter. He had great instincts, absolutely knew what was going to happen to the plays, and he just went right away. That's one of the things that stood out to me with Brian Dawkins was the great instincts. Now let's move on to our next guy. This is also tied for the Frank Gore list. Played 16 seasons with Washington and the Vikings. That is Paul Krause. He has the most interceptions of all time, ladies and gentlemen. Very high achieving award to do. 3 first-team All-Pro, 4 second-team All-Pro, 8 Pro Bowls, 1-time NFL interceptions leader, inducted into the Vikings Ring of Honor. I mean, I didn't get to watch him personally, but when you got to see the highlights and get to read the stories and all that, ball hawk guys, you see with the interceptions, he just would go after the quarterback and just wanted to get that ball up there against the receivers, tight ends, slot receivers, all that. What do you think of him, Mike?
The fact that we're sitting in 2023 talking about a player from the 60s and 70s goes to show you that Paul was obviously one of the better safeties on this list. But to be the all-time leader in interception in the NFL is a huge accomplishment. And hold it for this long, especially the NFL has become a more passing league over as time's gone by, right? And you would think if people were passing more, you can have more interceptions, right? The ball's in the air. And it's kind of crazy. I actually did not know that until I was doing the research for this, that Paul was the all-time leader in interceptions in the league. It goes to show you that, like I said, the safety position is a ball hawk, right? It could be wherever, if they have good vision of the field, be where the ball is. If you're a quarterback, you're on the right side, they throw it to the left side, you're not going to get it, right? But if you see where the quarterback's eyes are, you kind of know the play from doing film study, and your safety, follow where you think the ball's going to go. You're there, you get an interception. So, to get 81 interceptions in a career is big. I mean, 204 games played, so 81 interceptions. That's almost about one interception every 2.5 games, something like that. I mean, that's big. I mean, some players get one interception a season. So every 2.5 games, they get an interception and make that sustainable over 204 games. He's not a big return guy for interceptions. You said he had 6 touchdowns. He also had 11 fumble recoveries, 10 sacks. So, again, safeties could get sacks. It could be blitzed, good amount of tackles, 4 All-Pros, 8 Pro Bowls. And, he made the Hall of Fame in 1998. Yeah, another hard-hitting style safety. Great playmaker, obviously. And, he must have had good hands. To hold on to 81 interceptions, you got to have good hands. So, he's basically a receiver back there. Could also rush the passer, force fumbles, make tackles. It's really an all-around player. I hated that, he was on the Vikings, although we weren't alive for that. So it's just one of those guys. Again, if you're going to be on a list in 2023 for a GOAT series, you've played in the 60s and 70s, you got to be really good because, if you were just okay, you probably wouldn't be on the list. We're not probably giving him as much love as he deserves.
Yeah. Let's move on to our next player. This guy played 14 seasons with the San Francisco 49ers, the Raiders, the Jets. That is Ronnie Lott. He has the most Super Bowls out of the rest of these guys on the list here. 4 Super Bowls, 8 first-team All-Pro. 8. Very impressive to see that. 10-time Pro Bowler, 2-time interceptions leader. He was the co-leader for NFL forced fumbles 1 time. So made the 80s and 90s All-Decade team. Made the 75th, 100th anniversary team. Inducted into the 49ers Hall of Fame. Retired his number with the 49ers. And he made the NFL Hall of Fame. His stats, folks. 1,146 tackles. 63 interceptions. 16 forced fumbles. 17 fumble recoveries. 5 defensive touchdowns. And he has the most interceptions returned for a touchdown in a season by a rookie, which is 3. What do you think of him, Mike?
What thing that really stood out to me, right? He was first round in the 1981 NFL draft. 10 seasons from the beginning. Sometimes players come in, they take a year or two to develop. He made the Pro Bowl each of his first 10 seasons, right? And you can say, okay, the Pro Bowl is kind of a popularity contest. Although I don't know in the 80s if it was a popularity contest. There was no internet to, make votes. It had to be done some other way. I'm not exactly sure if anyone knows how they did the Pro Bowl back then, but I'm assuming it has to do with the players and the coaches. I think that's really the way it was done before they started doing the fan voting. So, I doubt it was as much of a popularity contest then it is now. So to make the Pro Bowls in each of your first 10 seasons, when you're a rookie, second year, third year, fourth, and on, that's big. And then your first team All-Pro, which, that's by the journalists. That's, in theory, definitely not a popularity contest. 8 of his first 10 seasons. So, 80%, again, when at least 2 of those, your first or second year player. That's real impressive. That's real to get those accolades as a player is impressive. He said he won 4 Super Bowls.
Yes.
I think that was also kind of you got Montana on the team. You got Jerry Rice, right, in the 80s in the 49ers. So, he's named the NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 86, elected to the Hall of Fame in 2000. Yeah, just another gifted playmaker who, a real hard hitter. I think that's kind of the common denominator. All these guys we have so far is a safety can't be afraid to put their nose in the ball and hit the guy. That's what we're seeing here. And that's, if you're a safety, you got to be strong. You got to be a go-getter and play some football. Wow, this is interesting. So apparently in the 86 NFC Championship game, Ronnie broke his right hand while blocking a field goal attempt. So not only is he a Hall of Fame player, but he's playing on special teams. Now, the downside of having a great player on special teams, right, is he could get hurt. So apparently in the NFC Championship game, he broke his hand, and then he refused to leave the game and played the rest of his game with a cast on his hand, and the 49ers ultimately won the game. Yeah, that was one of the seasons that they actually made the Super Bowl, but they didn't win. That was the NFC Championship game where he was playing special teams. Pretty interesting that they put him in special teams. Maybe they viewed it differently back then. Take the best defensive player in the league and put him on the field for a field goal block. That's pretty weird. I thought that was interesting.
But the also thing that strikes me is how fast Ronnie was. He was just a speedy guy. He had like Deion Sanders primetime speed out there, and he was still strong. So that's a very enforceable safety to get the tackles, make the stops, and get the pass deflections. Moving on to our next player. This guy is nicknamed the Tasmanian Devil as he competes for his long hair, if you can go check him out. That is Troy Polamalu, played 12 seasons with the Pittsburgh Steelers, two-time Super Bowl champion. He didn't win a third one because the Packers beat in the Super Bowl 45. 4 first-team All-Pro, 2-time second-team All-Pro, 8 Pro Bowls, 1-time Defensive Player of the Year, very close in that race when he was Defensive Player of the Year. Made the 2000s All-Decade Team, made the Steelers Hall of Fame, got inducted to the NFL Hall of Fame. His stats, folks, 783 tackles, 12 sacks, 32 interceptions, 14 forced fumbles, 5 defensive touchdowns, 107 passes deflected, Walter Payton Man of the Year award. And an incredible play I would like to say for him that he was really known for was in the 2008 AFC Championship game with a 40-yard pick six. He was just a maniac on the field when you watch this guy. Incredible to watch. And as I mentioned before about winning the Defensive Player of the Year, he won it by 2 votes that year. And what he's also famously known for is the hair. That hair is very long. He tried to compete with Clay Matthews of long hair in the NFL. What do you think of him, Mike?
Like you said, the hair, just the hair going everywhere. So look, Troy, he was in the league from 2003 to 2014. So, obviously we know Troy, and he kind of made a brand, put the football to the side. He made a persona for himself and created a brand just based off that hair. So, he was in like Old Spice commercials, different commercials, just really because of the hair. Great for him to own kind of a unique part of himself and, profit off of it. So, he had a unique quality to himself, and he really owned it. But going back to the football side of things, you could have all the hair you want, but if you're not a great player, no one's going to want you, right? So he had an interesting personality. Another ball hawk here. A lot of interceptions. And 7-time Pro Bowler, 4-time All-Pro. Is the NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 2010. Inducted to the Hall of Fame in 2020. And he won the Super Bowl with the Steelers and got an interception in the game, which helped the Steelers win 21-10. Like I said, the main thing that stands out to me when I think about Polamalu is those commercials. I just think that were really iconic commercials. But yeah, another, he had 32 interceptions in his career, so not as high as some of these other guys we're seeing on the list. So yeah, he obviously was a great cover safety, but just not a ton of interceptions. Didn't have Paul Krause numbers or Ronnie Lott numbers, that's for sure. In the 2010 season, he only had 32 interceptions his whole career. 9 of them were in the 2010, and that led the NFL. So he had a really good 2010 season, and that was the year that he was a Defensive Player of the Year. So.
Now let's move on to our last player before we get to our go picking. This guy played the majority of his career with the Baltimore Ravens, played with the Texans and the Jets for 12 seasons. That is Ed Reed. Ed Reed, a 1-time Super Bowl champion, 1-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year, 5 first-team All-Pro, 3 second-team All-Pro. He has the most career interception return yards, which is 1,590. He has the longest interception return, which is 108 yards. He has the most career postseason interceptions, 9. And he has the most seasons leading the league in interceptions. His stats, folks, 64 interceptions, 140 passes defended, 11 forced fumbles, 13 fumble recoveries, 646 tackles. Again, this is a huge ball hawk. Mike, what do you think of him?
Ed Reed is just one of the legends of the game on the safety position. A lot of these guys, maybe just in the right place at the right time for the interceptions. A lot of the interceptions, you watch his highlights, they were just pretty acrobatic. He's all over the field. showing the hands he has, just making interceptions out of nowhere. And they were always a lot more often than not game-changing plays. So Ed Reed's one of those things. We're old enough where we obviously saw Ed Reed play. So he had 13 Pro Bowls. I mean, I think that's the most Pro Bowls on this list, 13, right? 9 first-team All-Pros, like you said. Defensive Player of the Year in 2004.
Yeah.
More all-around safety. I mean, if you go back to his stats, right? Paul Krause interception numbers 81. But he has the second most interceptions, just ahead of Ronnie Lott at 63 with 64. So, he's the second most interception on this list. Talking about playmaking ability, he turned 7 of those into touchdowns on interceptions. I mean, I think that's the most here. Yards on interceptions, almost 1,500 yards on interceptions. I mean, that's huge. You get interception, get tackled right away, or be in the end zone and take a knee. But to take 1,500 yards on 64 interceptions, that's quite a bit. I mean, I'll do the math if you want. About 24 yards on average interception return. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah,
24. I'll take that. If you give me the ball back and 24 yards the other way, depending on where you're on the field, I'll take that any day. I mean, he won a Super Bowl. Like I said, Defensive Player of the Year. 35 sacks, about 34 and a half. 13 fumbles recovered. You can't write a better script than this. Some of the examples of big plays that he made. In Super Bowl, he intercepted a pass by the New York Giants quarterback Kerry Collins, returned 30 yards for a touchdown, so that was more than his 24 average. The Ravens won that game 34-7, so it was kind of a blowout, but, to get a big interception return on. If you get a defensive touchdown at any point in the game, that's huge. 2004 regular season, 9 interceptions, which led the NFL. So another player here who's led the NFL in a single season for interceptions.
That is our list, ladies and gentlemen. But let's get to the GOAT here, as we like to do here. We will start with a special guest here. I think we know where he's going to lean towards a little bit here and there. But let's start off. Who is your GOAT for this greatest safety of all time, sir?
Yeah, I know. I keep my opinions real close to the chest. Yeah, no, I think I kind of gave it away. I think it's clearly Ed Reed. I don't think there's really a question here. It was actually interesting learning about Paul Krause. Like I said, I didn't know that he led the lead in interceptions his career, and how about to close him out compared to Ed Reed? He had 17 more interceptions his career. So that's pretty impressive. Yeah, I think everybody else on this list, great players, but they're not going to give Ed Reed a run for his money. So I think Ed Reed is, to me, clearly the GOAT at the safety position. Clearly somebody that made the defense that he was on completely different defense and much stronger than obviously if he wasn't on it. He had Ray Lewis as kind of partner in crime for a little bit, in the middle of the field, but really kind of the communication they brought between having the Hawkeye view and Ed Reed and the middle linebacker communicate guy in Ray Lewis.
Well, for me, it comes down to 2 players. I would like to give recognition to Paul Krause for those interceptions, as Mike just mentioned. For me, it comes down to Ronnie Lott and Ed Reed. Now, Ronnie Lott had the 8 first-team All-Pro, which impressed me a lot. But with Ed Reed, ball hawk, wrecking machine, he did more things that stood out to me than Ronnie Lott, especially of returning the interception, forcing the fumbles, and being a playmaker all around compared to Ronnie Lott. I think Ed Reed was more of a playmaker and still a better safety than Ronnie Lott. So that being said, my GOAT is Ed Reed.
I agree with you. I think those are my top 2 too. So obviously I already put Ed Reed 1. I'll go the reverse order. So I think Lott's number 2. And the reason I put him there is that impressed me. The first 10 seasons being the Pro Bowl, 8 of the 10 being the All-Pro. I mean, that's never going to get done again. So I would say Lott's number 2. Hopefully we guided people in the right direction with this, safeties list. It's a little bit different for me, I'll be honest, because usually we're talking about stuff we see all the time. It's a little bit different to talk about things, Paul Krause, honestly, before this time, I didn't even know he existed. I'll be very honest. So, this was a learning experience for me. And I hope, if any of the viewers are learning something new through this, series, I think you're doing a great job with it. So
thank you.
Definitely write in the comments if you have a different list. Maybe we'll learn about a new safety that we didn't put on here because, we didn't know about him. It's very well. Like we said, Leroy Butler was missing from this list. I think he could have been on here. And I really think it's an interesting position. I don't know if you play pickup football, right?
I wanted to play safety. I wanted to play.
Usually it's safety I want to play because, and I think the reason why is because we have such good football minds. Because you're trying to think of the whole game, and when you think about it, you're used to watching the game kind of in a bird's eye view. They have the that camera going on the field and you're seeing that's how you're watching the safety is the most like that, heads always towards the quarterback. A lot of times the cornerbacks, they have to run with the receiver, their back goes to the quarterback. Safety is the biggest position downfield where you see everything and you're always looking really towards where the ball is.
Well, folks, that does it here for the GOAT series video for the greatest safety of all time. As we just mentioned, our GOAT, Ed Reeves, what we both had. Mike, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. Where can the folks find you?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. This is my first non-live episode on the channel. So, I'm happy to join some of the other guests you have on who've had really great insight. But, it was fun nonetheless. So hopefully the viewers enjoyed the insight I brought. Yeah, where you can find me, obviously you can find us at the Pack Reacts podcast, where, we're bringing insights about the Packers, where I think definitely had a lot of value there. So definitely come join us if you're a Packers fan. Even if you're not a Packers fan, come join us on the podcast. We usually do it every Thursday. Sometimes changes around, but we try to get guests on the podcast. We had Wes Hodkiewicz on the podcast. We had Matt Ramage on the podcast, Big B, definitely some other guests. And we're trying to get more guests as it goes. So if you're watching this episode right now, you're looking up, hey, I'm curious about who the GOAT safety is, right? And you just stumble upon this. Definitely check us out on the Pack Reacts podcast. We're on Twitter on the handle Pack Reacts Pod. We're running that as much as we can, trying to grow that thing. I also have a meme page on Instagram called Titletown Memes. Try to use that here and there, but mainly the podcast. So definitely check us out in there. Give us a follow. And if you'd like to join, reach out. We'd love to talk to you.
Thank you, Mike, once again. Folks, that does here is another edition of the Jimmy Hadley YouTube channel of the GOAT series video. We'll see you next time. That's a wrap in studio. Have a great time. Next video, we'll be moving to running backs. Stay tuned for that, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned. We got to say one thing before we head out here. Let's do it, Mike.
Go, Pack, go.
Go.
Go, Pack, go.